everyone will please take their seats. This is my 60th annual meeting, and we will alternate questions between Becky and the audience, which we have by zones, and with that, I will turn things over to Becky for the first question.
Thanks, Warren. This first question comes from Bill Mitchell. I received more questions about this than any other question. He writes, Warren, in a 2003 Fortune article, you argued for import certificates to limit trade deficits and said these import certificates basically amounted to a tariff. But recently, you called tariffs an act of economic war. Has your view on trade barriers changed, or do you see import certificates as somehow distinct from tariffs?
Yeah, well, the import certificates were distinct, but their goal was to balance imports against exports, and so that the trade deficit would not grow in an enormous way. In fact, it would have, and it had various other provisions in it to help third world countries at that time, as they were called, to perhaps catch up a little bit. And they had a variety of aspects to them, but basically they were designed to balance trade. And I think you can make some very good arguments for the fact that balanced trade is good for the world, and the more balanced trade there is, the better. It will continue to be better for cocoa to be raised in Ghana, and coffee in Colombia, and a few things. And over time, the American industry has gone from being an agricultural country. This was nothing but an ag country. I mean, virtually, and that was only 250 years ago. And we have become a very industrial country, and we did not want to make that a situation, in my view, where we ran greater and greater deficits, building up greater and greater debts against the country. So I designed this import certificate thing, which Charlie thought was a little Rube, too much like Rube Goldberg. I don't know whether that name is, but it's gimmicky. But it's certainly a lot better than anything, I think, than we're talking about now. And there's no question that trade can be an act of war, and I think it's led to bad things. Just the attitudes it's brought out in the United States. I mean, we should be looking to trade with the rest of the world, and we should do what we do best, and they should do what they do best. And I don't think it. That's what we did originally. I mean, we were good at producing tobacco and cotton 250 years ago, and we traded it. And we want a prosperous world with 8 countries with nuclear weapons, including a few that are what I would call quite unstable. I do not think it's a great idea to try and design a world where a few countries say, ha, 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 we've won, and other countries are envious. So my import certificate idea, which went no place, I think we've got extra copies, Rob. We've not a great demand for the copies. Anybody did, and if you'd like, and write the office, I think we could probably send you a copy of it. But the main thing to do is not use trade. Should not be a weapon. And the United States, we've won. I mean, we have become an incredibly important country, starting from nothing 250 years ago. There's nothing been anything like it. And it's a big mistake, in my view, when you have 7.5 billion people that don't like you very well, and you got 300 million that are crowing in some way about how well they've done. And I don't think it's right, and I don't think it's wise. I do think that the more prosperous the rest of the world becomes, it won't be at our expense. The more prosperous we'll become, and the safer we'll feel, and your children will feel someday. So that's...
Mr. Buffett, Mr. Abel, and Mr. Jane, good morning. I'm S.T. Zhang. I'm from Hong Kong. Mr. Buffett and Mr. Munger did a very good and successful investment in Japan in the past 5 or 6 years. The recent CPI in Japan is currently above 3%, not far away from its 2% target. Bank of Japan seems very determined in raising rates, while Fed, ECB, and other central banks are considering to cut them. Do you think BOJ, Bank of Japan, makes sense to proceed the rate hike? Will its planned rate hike deter you from further investing Japanese stock market or even considering to realize your current profits? Thank you very much for arranging this greatest event every year. Finally, I wish you healthy always and keep holding this shareholder meeting.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to extend the same goodwill to Japan that you've just extended to me. I'll let the people of Japan determine their best course of action in terms of economics. It's an incredible story. It's been about 6 years now, as you pointed out. I was just going through a little handbook that probably had 2,000 or 3,000 Japanese companies in it. One problem I have is that I can't read that handbook anymore. The print's too small. But and here were these 5 trading companies. They have a special name for them in Japan, but they were selling at ridiculously low prices. And so I spent about a year acquiring them, and then we got to know the people better, and everything that Greg and I saw we liked better as we went along. So we got fairly close to the 10% limit that we told the company we would never exceed without their permission. And so we did ask them recently whether that limit could be relaxed, and it's in the process of being relaxed somewhat. I would say that I'll speak for Greg beyond me, that in the next 50 years, and I hope he's running things then, we won't give a thought to selling those. I mean, Japan's record has been extraordinary, actually, in terms of that. My guess is that Tim Cook would tell you that iPhone sales there are about as great as any country outside the United States. American Express would tell you that they sell their product very, very well in Japan. Coca-Cola, that we do business with, another big investment of ours, they do extraordinarily well in Japan. They have a number of habits in a civilization that operates differently than ours. Japan is by far the biggest. This is the container they've always preferred for soft drinks, and they have a whole different sort of distribution system there. But we have been treated extremely well by the 5 companies. They they talked with Greg primarily. I went over there a year or two ago. But, Greg's more cosmopolitan than I am, so he's which isn't saying much actually, but
very little.
But he is. I don't know. How many times do you think you've met with representatives of one company or the other?
Yeah, when you think of the five, there's definitely a couple meetings a year, Warren. And I think the thing we're building with the five companies is, one, it's been a very good investment, but we are really, as Warren touched on, we envision holding the investment for 50 years or forever. But I think we also are building relationships to do incremental things with each of those companies. And we really do hope to do big things with them globally. They bring different perspectives and different opportunities than we see, and that's why we're building that long-term relationship with them.
It's super long-term, and they have a much. They have different customs. They have different approaches to business. That's true around the world, we don't have any intention in any way of trying to change what they've done because they do it very successfully, and our main activity is just to cheer and clap, and that I can still do at 94. So we will own those. We will not be selling any stock. I mean, that will not happen in decades, if then. And my guess is that they will find things, because they cover the world pretty much, the five trading companies. We will find things occasionally that may be very large for any individual company there. They may in some way be assisted by some help we bring to the situation. But that will be an expanding relationship. It's too bad that Berkshire has gotten as big as it is, because we love that position, and I'd like it to be a lot larger than it is. But even with the five companies they're very large companies, and they're large companies in Japan. And we've got at market that in the range of $20 billion invested, but I'd rather have $100 billion than $20 billion, and that's the way I feel about it. Several other investments we have, but size is an enemy of performance at Berkshire, and I don't know any good way to solve that problem, but Charlie always told me that having a few problems was good for me. I never quite understood that, but if you listen to him moralize, you would understand. And it's not an impossible problem at all. And the Japan investment has just been right up our alley. Yeah, I would say they would like to present us with opportunities. We would like to receive them. We've got the money. We both get along very well with each other, and they have some different customs than we have. They drink the number one Coca-Cola product they drink over there is something called Georgia coffee. I haven't converted them to Cherry Coke, and they're not going to convert me to Georgia coffee. But it's a perfect relationship. I just wish we could get more like it. And I never dreamt of that when I picked up that little. It wasn't so little; it was about that thick. But sometimes two companies to a page, and a couple thousand pages, I believe. But it's amazing what you can find when you just turn the page. We showed a movie last year that about turn every page, and I would say that turning every page is one important ingredient to bring to the investment field. And very few people do turn every page, and the ones who turn every page aren't going to tell you what they're finding. So you got to do a little of it yourself.
My name is Jackie Han. I'm from China and now work in Toronto, Canada. This is my 8th Berkshire Hathaway meetings at this point. I've probably spent more time with you than most people spend on Netflix. As you might guess, coming from a Chinese family, we've always had a soft spot for real estate. So the real question isn't why don't you own a house? It's why are you still buying stocks instead of more property? So here is my question. With today's high interest rates and global uncertainty, do you still believe in being greedy when others are fearful, or the value investing facing new challenges in today's environment? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, in respect to real estate, it's so much harder than stocks in terms of negotiation of deals, time spent, the involvement of multiple parties in the ownership. Usually when real estate gets in trouble, you find out you're dealing with more than the equity holder. But there have been times when large amounts of real estate have changed hands at bargain prices, but usually stocks were cheaper, but they were a lot easier to do. So Charlie did more real estate. Charlie enjoyed real estate transactions, and he actually did a fair number of them in the last 5 years of his life. But he was, he was playing a game that it was an interesting game to him. But I think if you'd asked him to make a choice when he was 21, he had to either be in stocks exclusively the rest of his life or real estate the rest of his life, he would have chosen stocks in a second. There's just so much more opportunity, at least in the United States. There's so much more opportunity that presents itself in the security market than.
All right, this question comes from Jessica Poon, who says, you've long been a strong believer in the American tailwind and the resilience of the United States, and history has proven you correct. Today, the U.S. appears to be undergoing significant and potentially revolutionary changes. Some investors are now questioning the concept of American exceptionalism. In your view, are investors being overly pessimistic about the U.S. economy? Or is the country indeed entering a period of fundamental change that requires a reassessment from a new perspective?
Well, I would say that Jessica, who I believe it sounds as if she is the step-granddaughter of one of our managers that I mentioned in the annual report, may not be the same one. But in any event, America's been in significant and revolutionary change really ever since it was developed. I mentioned that, we started out as an agricultural society. We started out as a society with high promises, and we didn't deliver on them very well. We said all men were created equal, and then we wrote a constitution that said blacks get counted as 3/5, and in Article 2 you'll find male pronouns used 20 times and no female pronouns used. So, it took till 2000, or 1920, I should say, till the 19th Amendment was passed, saying, oh yeah, we promised the women this back in 1776, and now we'll do something about it. And then we didn't do something about it for a long time. So we're always in the process of change. We'll always find all kinds of things to criticize in the country. But the luckiest day in my life was the day I was born. You know, 'cause I was born in the United States. And at the time, about 3% of all the births in the world were taking place in the United States. And I'd like to say that I had something to do, you know, listen, so sent messages out to my parents, for God's sakes, moved to the United States before I was born or anything. But I was just lucky. And I was lucky to be born male. I was lucky to be born white. I was like all kinds of things. But it's been, if you don't think the United States has changed since I was born in 1930, we've gone through all kinds of things. And we've gone through great recessions. We've gone through world wars. We've gone through the development of an atomic bomb that we never dreamt of, you know, at the time I was born. So I would not get discouraged about the fact that it never doesn't look like we've solved a very problem that's come along. And if I were being born today, you know, I would just keep negotiating in the womb until they said you can be in the United States. So we're all pretty lucky.
My name is Daniel, and I'm from Tenafly, New Jersey. First of all, I just want to say how grateful I am for getting the opportunity to ask you a question. When it comes to your principles of investing, you often talk about how important it is to be patient. Has there ever been a situation in your investing career where breaking that principle and acting fast has benefited you? Thank you.
Well, that's a good question. And there are times when you have to act fast. In fact, we made a great deal of money because we're willing to act faster than anybody around. The trick when you get in a business with somebody, or get in a room with somebody like that, and they want to sell you something for $6 million that's got $2 million of cash and a couple million of real estate and is making $2 million a year, you don't want to be patient then. You want to be patient and waiting to get the occasional call. My phone will ring sometime, you know, and with something that, you know, wakes me up. I may be sleeping in there or something, but you just never know when it'll happen, and that's what makes it fun. I mean, so patience. It's a combination of patience and a willingness to do something that afternoon if it comes to you. You don't want to be patient about acting on deals that make sense, and you don't want to be very patient with people that are talking to you about things that will never happen. So it's not a constant asset. It's not a constant liability to be patient.
My name is Benjamin Graham Sanderson from Pasadena, California. Warren, thank you for all you've taught us over the years. Earlier you said nobody but Steve Jobs could have created Apple, but nobody but Tim Cook could have developed it like he has. Warren, nobody but you could have created Berkshire, and I presume you view Greg as an outlier among outliers. But he seems so normal. Sorry, Greg.
Yeah, that's a nice way of saying it's not normal, actually, but I appreciate it.
So I was hoping you could share what specifically about Greg makes him your preferred successor. And Greg, we're excited to get to know you more over the next few decades. Thank you.
You've hit on the most important question. And in terms of the business, we've got a wonderful group of businesses. We've got an ability to do things that nobody else can do, which is hard to get in a capitalistic system that's been developed as fully as the United States has been. I mean, imagine being able to create something that in a very, very, very big playing field, you know, you'd really be very, very hard to develop anything like it. I don't think you could develop the people around it, let alone the capital position, you know, and the history and everything else. And the answer, of course, is that it does take a long, long time, and it takes getting around you a small cadre of people, which then spreads out somewhat. But where you've got mutual trust, where people do more than their share. And I've been around a lot of businesses over the years, and by nature, I'm somewhat critical of everything. I mean, I'm looking for what's wrong in things, because that's part of investing is looking, what are you missing? But we have, we've got people that, if they're asked to put on a show like this, instead of doing whatever their regular job is, they participated. I went around the groups of people who were exhibiting yesterday for an hour and a half, and these are people that are thanking me, and totally enthused about coming and doing a lot of work for which they don't get paid anything extra. And I don't know anything about the arrangements the individual companies make, but they work hard and they enjoy their work. And you really want to work at something you enjoy. I've had 5 bosses in life, and I liked every one of them, and they were all interesting. I still decided that I'd rather work for myself than anybody else. But if you find people that are wonderful to work with, that's the place to go. There's a movie called The Glenn Miller Story, and Glenn Miller went on from having a broken down band for 15 years to turning out the first. He found the sound and created the first gold record. And he turned around from being a nothing with the band that he had till he found the sound. And I always have told my kids ever since that their sound isn't my sound, but and you don't find it necessarily on the first job you take, because you got to eat, but if you get lucky like I did, you find it when you're very young, and then just keep doing it, and don't worry too much about starting salaries, and don't worry about be very careful who you work for, because you will take on the habits of the people around you. So there's certain jobs you shouldn't take, but you've got the greatest country in the world, and you got the greatest time in the world. So I would say that while I'm handing this over to Greg, that you can't even dream all the dreams that you could have about a place like Berkshire. But the big thing you have to do, though, is to be sure you can play the next day. I mean, in terms of financial activities on a meaningful scale,
Good morning, Mr. Buffett, Mr. Greg, and Mr. Ajay. My name is Peter Chen. I'm from Shanghai, China. This is my first time attending this shareholders meeting. I would like to ask a question about the wisdom of life. Have you ever encountered any major setbacks or low points in your life? And how did you get through and overcome them? Thank you very much.
Well, everybody gets setbacks, and some people have particularly bad luck in that respect, and others get through with fairly minors. But Charlie, he had setbacks. I had setbacks. I mean, it's part of life, and they're not any fun. I don't have any great advice for you about having the time of your life while you're having some major setback. But it comes with lifetime. You certainly have a setback when you die. And so everybody's got that setback guaranteed to them. But some people get, and I mean, it isn't a laughing matter in a sense, because, I mean, people get extraordinary bad luck, and other people get extraordinary good luck. Usually the people who get good luck don't really think it was so much luck as themselves, but you're just going to have it. I think that you're less likely to have it in terms of medical problems, in terms of, various things in life. I mean, you were born at a good time. I mean, if you look all the way through the history of China, when would you rather have been born? 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, or now? It's just hands down. You'd be lucky. I mean, if I came from 20 generations of shepherds, I think I get kind of tired of, my life just looking at these sheep every day. But, we can sit here and I can watch Nebraska not quite play the same game of football that we played 20 years ago. But I mean, everything in life has been made so much better that you've got to figure that you do a lucky straw by, staying in the womb for a couple 100,000 years and then just emerging at the right time. So I would focus on the things that have been good in your life rather than the bad things that happen, because bad things do happen. But it can often be a wonderful life. You could get terrible breaks in it. I mean, so far that really hasn't happened with me, but it's happened with some of my friends. But you get some bad breaks from time to time. But for 94 years, I've been able to drink whatever I want to drink, and they predict all kinds of terrible things for me, but it hasn't happened. So look at the bright side of things to the extent that you can, and you're lucky enough to you're here today. You're healthy. You come from a long distance, and you're getting a chance to learn more about something that interests you, and compare that with the situation a couple 100 years ago that you would have been offered. So anyway, that's enough moralizing.
I'm Mike Santoli, live in Omaha, Nebraska. After taking questions for 2.5 hours, Warren Buffett, in his 60th annual meeting, has called a break, promising to be back on stage in just 30 hours. One of the strongest stances that Mr. Buffett took in the morning session came during his answer to a question about tariffs and the impact of our relationships around the world. Listen here.
In the United States, I mean, we should be looking to trade with the rest of the world, and we should do what we do best, and they should do what they do best. And I don't think it... That's what we did originally. I mean, we were good at producing tobacco and cotton 250 years ago, and we traded it. And we want a prosperous world with 8 countries with nuclear weapons, including a few that are what I would call quite unstable. I do not think it's a great idea to try and design a world where a few countries say, ha, 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 we've won, and other countries are envious.
He stayed on that topic and doubled down as he got more questions, calling the Trump administration's protective stance a, quote, big mistake.
Trade should not be a weapon. And the United States the United States, we've won. I mean, we have become an incredibly important country starting from nothing. 250 years ago, there's nothing been anything like it. And it's a big mistake, in my view, when you have 7.5 billion people that don't like you very well, and you got 300 million that are crowing in some way about how well they've done. And I don't think it's right, and I don't think it's wise. I do think that the more prosperous the rest of the world becomes, it won't be at our expense. The more prosperous we'll become, and the safer we'll feel, and your children will feel someday.
Thanks.
Buffett also addressed Berkshire's record cash hoard of nearly $350 billion. He says he's sitting on the sidelines for now, but he wants to be ready when a buying opportunity presents itself.
Every now and then you find something, and occasionally, very occasionally, but it'll happen again, that I don't know when. It could be next week, it could be 5 years off, but it won't be 50 years off. We will be bombarded with offerings that we'll be glad we have the cash for. And it'd be a lot more fun if it would happen tomorrow, but it's very unlikely to happen tomorrow. Very, very unlikely to happen tomorrow. But it's not unlikely to happen in 5 years. And then the probabilities get higher as you go along.
Buffett also weighed in on the markets and the rough start to the year. He wasn't exactly concerned, though, about the volatility, saying if you can't take the heat, you might want to stay out of the kitchen.
Yeah.
The world makes big, big, big mistakes, and surprises happen in dramatic ways. And the more sophisticated the system gets, the more the surprises can be out of right field. That's part of the stock market, and that's what makes it a good place to focus your efforts if you've got the proper temperament for it, and a terrible place to get involved if you get frightened by markets that decline and get excited when stock markets go up. I don't mean to sound particularly critical. I mean, I know people have emotions. The luckiest day in my life is the day I was born. You know, because I was born in the United States. I was just lucky. And I was lucky to be born male. I was lucky to be born white. I was like all kinds of things. But if you don't think the United States has changed since I was born in 1930, we've gone through all kinds of things. And we've gone through great recessions. We've gone through world wars. We've gone through the development of an atomic bomb that we never dreamt of, you know, at the time I was born. So I would not get discouraged about the fact that it doesn't look like we've solved a very problem that's come along. And if I were being born today, you know, I would just keep negotiating in the womb until they said you can be in the United States. The world makes big, big, big mistakes, and surprises happen in dramatic ways. And the more sophisticated the system gets, the more the surprises can be out of right field. That's part of the stock market, and that's what makes it a good place to focus your efforts if you've got the proper temperament for it, and a terrible place to get involved if you get frightened by markets that decline and get excited when stock markets go up. I don't mean to sound particularly critical. I mean, I know people have emotions. I don't get fearful by things that other people are afraid of in a financial way. It's not that I don't have emotions, but I don't have emotions about the prices of stocks. I mean, those decisions get all the way to my brain, whereas emotions can get bogged down some other place. I went around the groups of people who were exhibiting yesterday for an hour and a half, and these are people who are thanking me, you know, and totally enthused about coming and doing a lot of work for which they don't get paid anything extra. And I don't know anything about the arrangements the individual companies make, but they they work hard and they enjoy their work. And, you really want to work at something you enjoy. It's interesting to me that in the investment business, so many people get out of it after they've made a pile of money. You really want something that you'll stick around for. While I'm handing this over to Greg, you can't even dream all the dreams that you could have about a place like Berkshire, but the big thing you have to do, though, is to be sure you can play the next day. Greg should become the chief executive officer of the company at year end, and I want to spring that on the directors effectively and then give that as my recommendation. Let them have the time to think about what questions or what structures or anything they want, and then there's a meeting following that, which will come in a few months. We'll take action on whatever the view is of the 11 directors. I think they'll be unanimously in favor of it. And that would mean that at year end, Greg would be the chief executive officer of Berkshire.